At Zoom into Wine, we work hard to bring experts on to educate us about their products, their regions. And today we have Jean Remi Barbier sitting in New York. He is the business development manager for Roederer Collection Imports and the expert on Roederer Champagne, which we're here to learn and celebrate. A great way to finish the year, Jean Remy,
Thank you.
with Roederer. So thank you for being our guest today.
Thank you for having me as your guest today.
We have
So,
a beautiful slideshow, and you've got the wine in your glass, and I'll be drinking it live with the guests as well. So please enlighten us. And I think as a wine professional, there are teeny little grower producers, there are large estates, and you guys are a brand of size and quality and do things at a very high level. And I think everyone, by the time that we're done today, is going to have a really high appreciation of exactly what is leading Champagne Louis Roederer to higher ground every single year. And I really think the formula you guys have employed is brilliant and beautiful and great strategy. And I think everyone's going to gain that today. So I'm going to let you take it from here. And I thank you for your time.
yeah, thank you, Elaine. I mean, as you said, we're a house, champagne house who behave like a grower. And for us, we do craftsmanship. And so this is where it starts. So welcome to Champagne Louis Roederer. Welcome to the vineyard of Champagne Louis Roederer, which is where the magic happened before happening it in the cellar. This is what we do the emphasis on the vineyard. So this is great to show a picture of the vineyard at first. And no, this is not my house in Champagne. I wish I can have a beautiful house in Champagne. So where it starts is in 1776, which is a date to remember for the United States of America. So from now on, everybody should have a reason to open a bottle of collection from Champagne Louis Roederer if it's not Cristal on every 4th of July. And especially next year, maybe it will be a Magnum, because next year is a big anniversary at the house, 250 years of history. So over 2 centuries, 7 generations has been at the helm at Champagne Louis Roederer. Because yes, Champagne Louis Roederer remains part of the very, very last family-owned and independent houses of Champagne. Very rare. This is Louis Roederer himself who inherited the company from his uncle and renamed the house eponymously in 1833, and who sets to target market abroad and to develop the house like it is known today as the most admired champagne house, 6 years in a row from the Drink International. Quite the accomplishments. But here it's a philosophy that is terroir driven. This is tradition. This is excellence. I like to add as well craftsmanship because this reputation has really been built into the vineyard. So the vineyard at Champagne du Roder and I mean first the people, very important of course. So on your left you have Frédéric Rousseau, who's the seventh generation. He's the president and CEO of the company since 2006. And on your right, you have Jean-Baptiste Lecaillon, who's winemaker at Champagne du Roder since 1999.
Hmm.
So continuity, longevity, and patience is key at Louis Roederer. And he's also the executive vice president in charge of the production of Roeder Collection because, as you said in my very long title, Roeder Collection is a collection of properties that are located in France for the most part. Pichon Comtesse in Bordeaux, Domaine Hot in Provence, Ramos Pinto in Portugal, but also to name a few in California, Roller Estates, Schraffenberger, Domaine Anderson, and the latest acquisition Mary Edwards in Sonoma, as well as Diamond Creek in Napa. So this falls into the Roederer collection, and Jean-Baptiste Lecaillon is overseeing those property as the executive vice president of the production. Um, they are in the vineyard, like we started, and the vineyard at Louis Roederer is very essential. The vineyard is close to 600 acres in 410 plots. That's we have actually 410 vats at the house, so it's very meticulous. And our vineyard is mostly planted Pinot Noir. This is why Cristal, I'll tell you in a minute. Cristal is predominantly Pinot Noir because we're a house of Pinot Noir. So 53% of Pinot Noir, 41% of Chardonnay, and 6% of Pinot Meunier. We don't use a tremendous amount of Meunier, only in two of our cuvées that I will tell you shortly. What's important is this vineyard is only in Grand Cru and Premier Cru villages. This is extremely important. And another biggest achievement that we're very proud of is 70% of our vineyards satisfy our production. So this is key for us. It means that we do not buy much grapes. Just to put that in perspective, on average, houses will, their vineyard will satisfy, we say between 5 to maximum 20% of their needs. So in other words, they're buying a lot. This is the dynamic of Champagne. The growers of Champagne owns 90% of the land, but they're only responsible for 10% of the total production. So the houses are buying a lot, and we're not. Why? It's because Louis Roederer himself, at the early stage of the house, understood the importance of buying the land. This is the vineyard of Louis Roederer, the map of the vineyard. So you would see Épernay right in the middle. This is actually where I'm born and raised. But you see the three different sub-regions of Champagne, the main ones. We don't grow vineyard in the Côte des Bars, which is further south. We don't grow vineyard in the Cézanne or Vitria, further south of Côte des Blancs. Here you have on the north the Montagne de Reims, which is the mountain. We grow mostly Pinot Noir. You have Vallée de la Marne on the western part of Épernay. And then you have Avize, the Côte des Blancs, further south, where we grow Chardonnay with chalky soil. What's very important is in each of those sub-regions, we have a dedicated viticulture team because the way you grow Pinot Noir in Montagne de Reims is not the same you grow Chardonnay in the Côte des Blancs. So again, this is very meticulous viticulture. This is haute couture of viticulture, craftsmanship again, and we have one press center in each of those sub-regions, one in Haï, in the Vallée de la Marne, one in Verzenay, in the Montagne de Reims, and one in Avize for the beautiful Chardonnay. To understand the viticulture as well, because this is extremely important at Louis Roederer, so we're very sustainable, and actually a bit less than half of the vineyard is organic certified, and the other half is biodynamically farmed. So we're the largest biodynamic estate in the Champagne region. I hate using superlative when we're such a small house, independent and family owned, but I think that when you associate largest with biodynamic, this is quite the achievement again here. So this is something that we're very proud of. This is not something that is new, that is followed by some sort of any trends. This is something that was initiated by Jean-Baptiste Lecaillon in 2000 with the plan 2012, which was to make Cristal the first prestige cuvée 100% biodynamic. And so this was achieved with the vintage 2012 for the Cristal Blanc, as well as 2007 for Cristal Rosé. Actually, to talk about the depths into the cuvée of Louis Roederer, we have precise winemaking. I always have one slide ahead. Sorry about that, Ian. Precise winemaking, of course. So we have extensive source of reserve wine that I will tell you shortly in collection. But also we studied a perpetual reserve in 2012, which is quite impressive to make at this level of our entry level champagne, which is still sold in a lot of country. But as I said earlier as well, this is minimalist vinification and plot by plot vinification. In other way, we have more like a sense of place because we have one vat per plot at Louis Roederer, so 410 plots total that allow us to be very meticulous, very precise into the blending.
Perpetual reserve. So that's kind of a new that's an I like that terminology, but basically every year you're taking away and adding to the perpetual reserve the same amount.
Exactly. Yeah, the same amount. So our perpetual reserve is aged in reductive environments because it's stainless steel. It
Hmm.
is actually a custom built stainless steel tank. It's very impressive. They build it in the room. And so they started in 2012. And so every year since 2012, you're adding 50% of Chardonnay and 50% of Pinot Noir that every year you topped. So obviously you're taking off every year, but it's gonna help like creating some depth
Sure.
and complexity into the wine while still keeping the freshness because as I said it's reductive stainless steel, but it allows us to have more breadth and more understanding like of the Roederer style as well.
Very cool.
This is, to understand Louis Roederer as well, it's to understand the depths as well into our cuvée. So from left to right, we have collection, which is the one we're tasting, the one that I also have in my glass this afternoon. Collection is the only cuvée at the house that is made uh, you know, every year that is made as a multi-vintage, so we don't call it non-vintage. I'll explain why, but this is also the only cuvée that comes from some purchasing grapes as well. There's obviously, a good amount that is coming from our estates, but we are purchasing a little bit for the rest of the cuvée. So from Brut Vintage, Rosé Vintage, Blanc de Blanc Vintage, Brut Nature, Blanc and Rosé Vintage, they're all coming from our estates exclusively our vineyard, and they are every year. I mean, not every year, but they are always vintage. So they are always declared vintage. Not every year. For example, the Brut vintage we skipped few vintages. Brut Nature, it's only made on hot and dry vintages. This cuvée is the 2018 vintage, and so this is the fifth release over the last 20 years. This is kind of the exception. I like to call it the black sheep of the line. It's a collaboration with French designer Philippe Starck. So this is obviously not something we're making every year, but Blanc de Blanc is produced relatively every year. Rosé always vintage as well. So this is quite different as well compared to some other houses that are purchasing as well for Blanc de Blanc, for Rosé, and they are mostly making non-vintage in terms of entry level. And then this is Cristal. So Cristal is obviously 100% estates. Cristal is actually coming from the domain Cristal. We call it the Cristal domain. I'll explain why. Cristal is always vintage. It is not produced every year, of course, only on outstanding year. And since 1974, there is Cristal Rosé, which was introduced by previous generation Jean-Claude Rousseau, the sixth generation. So it's relatively new because last year we celebrate our 50th anniversary. And then you have Cristal Vinothèque in Blanc and in Rosé. Cristal Vinothèque is very secret at the house. Actually, I talked to a lot of people who are not necessarily aware of Vinothèque. The main reason outside of the price points, which is obviously, as you can imagine, on the high. It's also only produced at very limited amount of bottle. We're talking here of less than 1,000 bottles. So I let you imagine what's the allocation for the US and then define what's the scarcity. So this is probably why you haven't seen Cristal Vinothèque everywhere. This is made in purpose, but it's to show how Cristal can age over the years while still keeping the freshness. So it's aged for a total of 20 years, which is a very long time. And the first release of Cristal Vinotech was with the vintage 1995 in the year 2018. So also relatively new.
What is the current release?
We just released 2004, which we're very, very excited about. I personally, as you can imagine, love to geek around champagne. What's great with the latest release, so oh 04 and oh 02, you can do Cristal Vinotech oh 04, you can do Cristal oh 04, the late release, and you can do Cristal oh 04 original release. So you have three different cuvées but not so different of Crystal. So this is kind of like, something again, very geeky, but very interesting to do.
Very nice. We're going to talk now about collection wines, which they're basically iterations. They're not vintages, and so you're able to uh, blend both that perpetual reserve with the current vintage, and using estate plus purchased fruit, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. The mindset behind collection, we call them multi-vintage because it's no longer a non-vintage in the sense that we're not following the same recipe. And I'm using recipe in purpose. I know it's a strong word, but recipe means that you're really following every year the same amount of proportion, the same dosage. You keep the same style no matter what the year is. And this model was actually made in Champagne to push the ripeness into the cellar to kind of like fight for ripeness after like terrible like decades of the 70s. But in Champagne right now, global warming is a reality, and you have better grapes, you have more maturity. And so in the vintage 2002, which was fantastic vintage, Jean-Baptiste Le Caillon had to lower down the quality of the former called Brut Premier, the non-vintage of the house. And so that's when he realized that something was wrong with this model. And at Roederer, we're pushing the excellence. We want to, always show the best. And we start, developing and thinking and brainstorming that maybe in a quest of excellence, we need to adapt. We need to adapt to the vintage. Some vintage will be more Chardonnay, some vintage will be more Pinot Noir. So you need to adapt and show the best. So the first collection was 242, and so the number stands for the number of blend since the foundation house. So 245 stands for the 245th blend since the foundation house. So you have the number that is on the bottom of the collection. So you have way more traceability, way more transparency. Because if you like to collect champagne now, you know approximately like how old is your champagne. Before with non-vintage, you had zero clue unless they're writing the base year in the back, but rarely houses are doing that. So the idea behind this is to make the best every year, but to feature a little bit the vintage while still keeping the style of Roederer. So 245 is a base year of 2020, which we put 41% Chardonnay, 35% Pinot Noir, and 24% Pinot Meunier. The base year will represent roughly 55 to 56% of the bottle. And then to have the style of Louis Roederer, as we said earlier, we're using the perpetual reserve. So 35% is dedicated to the perpetual reserve that is much more reductive, that keeps the freshness of the wine. So we started in 2012, and so there's wine from 2012 up until 2019 in 245 because the base year is 2020. And then in order to have a little bit more texture, a little bit more complexity, we're adding as well 10% of the reserve wine that are coming from the youngest vines of Cristal. I'll tell you more in a second about Cristal, but Cristal, we only use vines that are at least 25 years. So what do we do in between? We're using them to make the reserve wine, and they're aged in a much more oxidative environment because they're aged in large French oak cask. When I say oxidative, it's relative because they're large French oak casks. We saw them earlier on the picture, so it's
Yeah.
really to bring the texture. We do partial malolactic fermentation. What's partial malolactic fermentation? I mean, in other words, it's to keep the crisp, bright acidity in the champagne. Um, and then we age the collection 3 years. 3 years on the lease, which is double than the regulation allows for non-vintage, because yes, even though we don't call it non-vintage, it falls as per the CIVC regulation into the non-vintage category. So it's aged for 3 years, which is kind of like a very long time for multi-vintage, non-vintage. And the dosage for 245 is 7 grams of sugar per liter. But again, we adapt every year to the proportion and to all of this technical information. Obviously, because we changed them, we made a QR code on the back. So on every bottle, you have a QR code, which you can see right there. And you don't necessarily need a specific app or anything. You can just scan it. It will redirect you to our website, and all this information are directly accessible. So again, it's called collection because the purpose is to collect them. And so, 1 year, maybe you will not remember, unfortunately, this very pleasant tasting together. So you will be able to still know what's the proportion of Chardonnay to have, or what's the base year, so you know when to open your bottle, whether it's with a food pairing, whether it's for, specific occasion because you like champagne with a little bit more age. You have much more information from now on, thanks to the collection.
This is amazing information, and you can really see the quality approach here and the investment. Using a good portion of the Cristal in this collection, using the perpetual reserve and the base. That's very impressive. So the wine that we're looking at is 245. Those of you that are drinking out of half bottle are in 246, and there's the same commitment in the iteration 246. You could see that some of the data is very similar. So it's a through line that will keep these wines similar, but each collection, each number will have some differences, and they'll be different age, different levels of advancement, and you may pick favorites over time and want to go back and taste that and see how it's advancing. And I think that's really the opportunity that you have. It's almost like the vintage concept, but with the added benefit of some of the texture, the richness, the ageability, because vintage champagne really can punish you if you open it too early, and and this product allows you to indulge and access greatness at a really good price with very high standards. And I think this is a remarkable what you guys are doing. Let's talk about Cristal.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you can see, we love map at Louis Roederer. I think it's a way of also showing that we're very precise. We know where everything comes from, and there's a reason behind every decision that are taken, and there starts into the vineyard. So this is the Cristal vineyard. So Cristal is 7 villages that are only Grand Cru. So you have Verzenay, you have Verzy, Beaumont-sur-Vesle in the Montagne de Reims, you have Ailly in the Vallée de la Marne, and then in the Côte des Blancs you have Cramant, Avise, and Ménil-sur-Roger. So 7 villages, 45 plots. 45 plots, so 45 lieux-dits that are actually candidates to go to the final blend. What does it mean? It means that at the time of blending, we are tasting each plot and we decide if they're fulfilling the criteria that we want for Cristal. So once again, this is a quest of excellence because today we're talking about the 2016 vintage. And 2016 vintage is actually a great example of those 45 plots because out of the 45, we're not using them all necessary. And in 2016 vintage, we're using only 32 plots. So once again, we're family house. We're taking decisions that are for quality purposes and not for business decision. And this is a great example with the vintage 2016. 2016, very excited to talk about this current vintage of Cristal. Also because last week the wine got the perfect score of 100 points
Wow.
by Audrey Frick from Jeb Dunnock. Very excited. I think 2016 overall, we like to say in Champagne that it was a vintage of living dangerously. We actually got a relatively late summer. But overall, like it's a Grand Cristal, we call it, because it's 50% sun, so very ripe and juicy Pinot, and 50% soil, because the soil of Cristal are very chalky, and so we have here salinity, saline Chardonnay. It tends to follow the path a little bit to compare vintages. We talked about 2002 earlier. It follows the lead of 2002, 2008, and 2012. So if you know a little bit of the vintage charts of Champagne, you will know that those like three vintages are actually like great vintages. So it's always, a good decision to stock up on those vintages, age them because Cristal is also a champagne that you can age for many years. We like to talk about the window of beauty at Cristal, which is 20 years. If obviously you have the patience, but patience is always rewarded. If you don't have the patience, I suggest to open the bottle 30 to 60 minutes before, so let the wine breathe, or you can just pour it in a AP glass or white wine glass, so it's gonna gain with oxygen because it is decanting. Pouring wine champagne in a glass is also a way of decanting it. Cristal is usually 60% Pinot Noir, 40% Chardonnay. As I told you, the Grand Cristal, because of the ripe Pinot that was very concentrated, we slightly reduced the amount of Pinot Noir to 58%. So 58% Pinot Noir, 42% Chardonnay. It's obviously 100% estates. Here, it's a no-brainer for Cristal. This is the haute couture of Champagne. This is our prestige cuvée. This is 100% estates. And since the vintage 2012, this is 100% biodynamic. It comes from older vines, at least 25 years, and they are mid-slope because we really want, a good drainage, but also like the roots to go deep into the soil, into the subsoil as well. They're chalk, and this chalkiness will be tasted a little bit in the on the palates. You have this nice chalkiness, this nice salinity. It's powdery. There's salinity into the wine. You have great freshness, but also great complexity. And obviously, Cristal, younger Cristal, like 2016 vintage, it's very like straight wine. There's a lot of tension that will soften with time. With time in your glass, with time being open in the bottle, with time just keeping the bottle in your cellar. Obviously, at perfect condition. What are perfect condition for champagne? I mean, I'm sure that you're aware, but especially for Cristal, I would add that make sure that you keep the orange cellophane where the bottle comes from. That was something we introduced in 1984. It's to protect it from the light struck. This is something that is very important because our bottle of Cristal is in a clear glass. The story I don't know if you want me to talk
Sure,
briefly
sure. Go.
the
Please.
story of Cristal. I mean, unfortunately, I don't have an open bottle of Cristal in front of me, but I have some in the back. They're dummy bottles. But Cristal was a cuvée that was made for the Tsar Alexander II because he was drinking a lot of champagne. Actually, like at the time, Russia was at the height of sophistication, and they were drinking lavishly on champagne. So I think one bottle out of 10 was a bottle of Louis Roederer, and Louis Roederer himself had a tight relationship with the courts, and so. The Tsar requested Louis Roederer to make the finest champagne in a very specific bottle. Why in a very specific bottle? Well, he had two fears. One was to be poisoned and one was to be assassinated. So he wanted to have a bottle made in crystal. So they appointed at the time a Flemish glassmaker who made the bottle in crystal. And why transparent? I mean, why crystal clear? It's to see through, so you could see if there's any poison. So the Tsar actually had those fears, and he died on third attempt of assassination.
Hmm.
No bottle of crystal was involved in the assassination, just so everybody knows. But yeah,
I did
so
not know that. That's true. He died, he actually died of being assassinated, huh?
yeah.
Wow.
Third attempts. And so the second fear was to be assassinated, as we discussed. And so, um, in a bottle of champagne, you have a punch, and the punch you see like this is a little space at the bottom where you can put your thumb in there. In Cristal, you have no point. It's a flat bottom. This is to avoid hiding a little bomb on the below. So obviously this is also why you have thicker glass. It's to keep the pressure because in a bottle of champagne you had 6 bars of pressure. And that leads me to just a quick recommendation approaching to the celebration of the New Year's. Be careful when you open a bottle of champagne. Just make sure you do it right. And there's a lot of pressure. Some people can hurt themselves. So yeah.
Yeah, I love that story. So no bombs in the Cristal and no poison. So you are assured a very special bottle of wine with a magical history.
Yeah.
And what year was the first Cristal created?
So I was about to say, so 1876 is when the first crystal was made
Mm,
for the Tsar. And so next year, not only the 250th anniversary of the house will be celebrated around the world, but the 150th anniversary of Cristal that
wow,
makes us the first prestige cuvée ever made. The story could be heard differently because we didn't release Cristal officially in the markets until 1954 with the vintage 1945.
I see.
So some other cuvées are claiming that they are the first prestige cuvée. They are the first prestige cuvée released in the markets. We didn't release Cristal in the markets,
Yours
but
was
we
made
made it
privately for the Tsar of Russia.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, that's powerful. And I've had the pleasure of opening some very old bottles. The wine ages really beautifully, and I love watching champagne develop. And so put a bottle of Cristal into your cellar, and when that greatness comes, you're ready. You don't have to go out and and find something. You've been aging it and preparing for greatness, so you materialize it, literally creating it because you are prepared. So that's my suggestion for everybody for the new year. And it's a beautiful gift. And we really appreciate your time, Jean Remi. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. Thank you very much. Cheers.
Great to spend some time with you. And I hope you have a great holiday season and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, happy holidays, everyone.